very hard landing. China's GDP was 9.2% last year. Some of the biggest banks have cut their forecasts, sometimes twice, to a consensus of 7.9% this year, but others say it will be much lower. Jefferies says China's GDP growth is going to plunge to between 3 and 4% by next year, and the bears at Asianomics say it's 3 to 5% this year and 0 next year at best. Nearly half the big Chinese companies traded in Hong Kong have reported worse than expected earnings or revenue, and that's despite China growing at 7.6% in the second quarter. Contrast that to the situation in the United States. Despite GDP growth of just 1.5%, nearly three-quarters of American companies are turning in better than expected earnings, while Chinese companies are struggling to earn money despite much higher GDP growth.
Well, we know that China's been slowing as of late, but Robin, what is it that suddenly has economists and analysts so worried now about China?
Well, Susan, it's that high inventories and overcapacity are building in industry after industry. July data showed that China's exports plunged because of weak demand in the U.S. and Europe, and CEOs of Chinese companies say privately that with labor costs rising by double digits and demand falling, times are worse now than during the global financial crisis. Economist Xiao Geng of the Fung Global Institute says Chinese CEOs feel hopeless and that China has reached a turning point. Well, maybe the CEOs are worried because Chinese companies just aren't getting paid. Accounts receivables are rising for 4 out of 5 of China's 40 biggest companies, sometimes dramatically. Or just look at one industry, the steel industry. The industry's average profit was about $1 per ton of steel in the first half, far below even the $8 a ton low that it hit during the financial crisis. That's according to China Iron and Steel Association. The big state-owned steelmakers, they're losing money but racing to cut prices. And what worries the economists more? Many steelmakers are losing money but increasing production. It's up 5% year over year. It's not just steel. You see massive overcapacity in cement, in cotton, even cars. And Beijing is holding off on economic stimulus because it doesn't want to trigger higher inflation and higher housing prices. So all those reasons put together are why some China watchers are getting very worried all of a sudden that the world's second largest economy is about to hit the wall.